The Department of Justice has Epstein-related footage, hours of it, but they're not releasing it. I'm Tara Palmeri. I've spent years investigating the Epstein case for 2 podcasts, where I traveled across the country with Epstein survivor Virginia Roberts-Giuffre, trying to corroborate her story and the story of so many other survivors. In this episode, I'll explain why the DOJ is keeping that evidence under wraps, what it says about the so-called John Does, Epstein's rich and powerful friends that he trafficked young girls to, and why the public hasn't seen the most explosive material tied to the case. Based on everything I've learned and heard about Jeffrey Epstein from the many people who have spent a lot of time with him, I do not believe he's the type of man to kill himself.
Pam Bondi, if you're listening, it's down to you. I'm Joanna Coles, Chief Content Officer of The Daily Beast. This is The Daily Beast podcast, and today we have an intriguing guest. She is a one-woman media empire, Tara Palmeri. She has The Red Letter, her Substack, and the Tara Palmeri Show, which is her podcast where she interviews Congress people and celebs who are interested in politics. She also did a podcast called Broken, Jeffrey Epstein, which I still find intriguing. And I have so many questions for her, like, was he murdered or did he really kill himself? That old chestnut. Anyway, no time to waste. Let's get into it. Tara, thank you for joining us. Tara Palmeri, I'm so excited to have you here. You branched out on your own. You have worked for Politico, ABC, Puck, and now you're working for yourself. You've gone independent. Explain exactly the perimeters of your empire.
Thanks. I wouldn't call it an empire just yet, but I appreciate that one day. I just thought to myself that if there was ever a moment to go independent, it would be right now to start my own media company. People are choosing people over institutions. They are choosing influencers over institutions. They are choosing individual journalists over institutions. There is a general distrust. And I think the more that the people who are reading your news or reading your scoops know about you, the more trust that you build. I think a lot of people read the news and they see a byline, but they don't know that person behind the byline. They don't know anything about them. They don't even know if they should trust them. But if you are an independent news journalist, you can have a bias and you can say, I don't like the
Here is my bias.
Here is my bias.
Your bias.
Exactly.
Right.
Take it or leave it. Or I'm not coming in that direction. I'm coming as a nonpartisan journalist, which makes it difficult, frankly, because I do think a lot of people go to the internet to self-soothe with voices that tell them what they want to hear. And I mean, sometimes I'll go on a show and I'm on with a personality who is considered, further to the left, and they'll say, you're MAGA, because I've reported on Trump's relationship with Stephen Miller and how it's more complicated than people think. Or I go on a voice on with a person who represents the right and they think you're left. And so it's really hard to win anyone over. And I think ultimately what I'm trying to do is just present my information, build a relationship based on trust. That's all we have. And in so many ways, the journalism community has lost that. Mm-hmm. And so I do think there is an opportunity to try to rebuild the trust with our audience. And I do think it's through individuals. And I think it's through allowing people to understand who the messenger is.
But isn't the advantage of institutions that actually they serve that up? Because most people don't have time to do that. I mean, in my wildest dreams, I would love to sit down and read 30 different influencers before I start the day, just so I have a kind of, a variety of opinion. But in fact, the point about the New York Times or the point about the Daily Beast is they do it for me.
Totally. And that's why I subscribe to the Daily Beast and the New York Times.
Excellent.
No, I do.
Very glad you're a subscriber.
And I listen to your podcast. I listen to Kara Swisher at Pivot. I love the Turning Points crowd. I like to listen. I listen to Megyn Kelly sometimes. I listen to Ben Shapiro. I like to listen to people on the right too. And I want to hear how they defend Trump.
It's hard to listen to.
No, but I
Kelly.
think it's yes. But sometimes it's interesting for me to hear how she defends Trump and how they're spinning it.
Do you even believe Megyn Kelly? I mean, Megyn Kelly used to be this sort of liberal, and now I feel like it's all performance.
That she's serving up red
word
meat.
Of it. Yeah, I mean, I just think,
sometimes I think she knows.
I don't think she believes a word of it. she's just found a niche, and she's very good at promoting that niche, but it just doesn't feel like the real Megyn Kelly at all, who lives on the Upper West Side, sends her children to private school and seems, thoroughly at ease with her now lucrative life.
Listen, you could very well be right. It's certainly a lot easier to make it in this game by serving up red meat over and over again as an attractive woman. And, I'm sure her audience is male men who used to watch cable news. They watch her now. She is extremely expressive and angry, and she reflects their views, except in the form of a beautiful woman. And she serves up red meat that you're not going to hear from a lot of women. And that is, I'm sure, enticing.
I don't know. I feel like there's a whole ton of women who serve up red meat. I mean, there's Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are obviously politicians. But I don't know. I feel like Laura Ingraham, there's a whole channel devoted to them on Fox News.
Right. I mean, Megyn has so many hours, though. Between Sirius, she's on YouTube. That's the other thing.
She's a bit like Law and Order now. There's just, you're never knowingly an hour away from a new show.
Right.
Or a rerun of it.
Exactly. She's on all of these different platforms. The other thing is that the YouTube audience is actually getting older. I mean, I go home and I see my father, and he's, he's on 70, he's 70, but it's like a 65 plus crowd that watches it on their TV, like it's TV, going from show to show to show. And so she sort of dominates that. I do think at times it's disingenuous, the outrage. And I do wonder sometimes, how can you bring on Mark Halperin, for example, who has been accused of, sexual harassment of so many women that I've worked with personally in my career. And I'm like, why is he getting a second shot and on your network, especially considering what she had to go through at Fox? So that's sort of upsetting for me personally, because I saw...
Did you work with Mark?
I didn't. I came after him at ABC, but I saw the wreckage. I saw what that kind of personality can do, and the women that I spoke to and some of the men that also knew about it. I mean, he was only choosing women who were so junior, the type of women that are like, they have no power when a political director is coming on to them like that. It can make them choose to never be in the business. It can ruin their careers. And they're not going to go to HR. I mean, who has the guts to do that in the beginning of their career? And I don't like to see this. And I see it on a woman basically giving him a pass. It's sort of upsetting. And
okay, well, it's a good, interesting time to talk about it because we just had the Diddy verdict. You spent some time doing a podcast on Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
What is your whole view of the Me Too movement now, then?
I think men are now the victims, and women are... It's just changed so much. Women... They're constantly questioned. Men are getting second passes. I mean, I think the fact that President Trump was reelected, it also just sort of it invalidates the movement in a lot of ways. And I don't think that people are really interested in hearing about the trauma of women anymore in the same way that they did before. It really have to break through the story of power imbalance. It doesn't break through clearly. How people are abusing their power. And that is the common denominator in all of these stories, right? And rape is all about power. Sexual harassment is all about power. Those men could be with women who are on their level, but they don't. They go for women who are powerless. And that's the common denominator.
We published the Jeffrey Epstein tapes, which I thought might have impacted the election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean... Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, as you know, because you've done a podcast on him, were very good friends. And we had tapes through the author Michael Wolff of Jeffrey Epstein talking about Donald Trump, which were fascinating. It was fascinating to get an insight into Epstein and hear his voice, but it was also fascinating to hear him on Donald Trump and the maneuver the two of them would pull together when they went out to pick up women at casinos in Atlantic City.
Right. Yeah, he always gave his... aunt and mother a room in his casinos whenever they went down there. He would always hook up the Epstein family, Trump. It is a weird relationship, right? Although Trump was ready to to turn on Epstein when he had a chance because of real estate, not over the women.
Right.
Which is the part that really is the most upsetting. I mean, people want the smoking gun, right? That connects Trump to Jeffrey Epstein and the underage girls. But I think at the same time, he was obviously so aware of it that he had these young girls around. I mean, even according to a lawyer that subpoenaed Trump, he told me that, Epstein had told him he's in a Big Brother program, and that's why there were these young girls in his at his pool, and Big Brother, Big Sister program. And it's like,
I don't think it was that kind of Big Brother that
exactly.
anybody was expecting.
Right. And it's like, at that point, when do you start to think that the people around Epstein, these high-flying people, like, why did they all look away for so long? I mean, do they own? They wear some of the guilt too.
What did you think? What did you think at the end of your podcast on him? What were your conclusions about Epstein?
I think he's a sick individual. I think he was using that information as kompromat to build his business, to get money. I think he traded in secrets. I think that he was helpful to agencies within the U.S. I don't know. I can't confirm abroad, but I think that he
What do you mean he was helpful to agencies?
Well, we know that he was an FBI informant at the very least. A lot of people are, but we know he was an FBI informant, and that was factored into his sweetheart deal.
I love the way you just throw that out there. A lot of people are. I don't know people who are FBI informants.
Okay, that's
well,
fair.
at least I'm hoping that none of my close group of friends are FBI informants.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, he was literally
Do you have lots of friends who are FBI informants?
I know a lot of people in law enforcement, just probably because of being a reporter.
That's different to being an FBI informant.
That's true. That is true. You're right.
I don't think I realised Jeffrey Epstein was an FBI informant. I mean, I'm not an expert on Epstein in any way. I didn't realise he was an FBI informant. So he was informing on all the people that came to his house? Had dinners and things?
I don't know that he was necessarily doing it based on the sex trafficking angle of it. But, he was obviously traveling all over the world with the wealthiest people in the world, and he had information. And when they were putting together that sweetheart deal, he had given them information as part of the deal so that he got off. I mean, he was literally in a county jail and got to go into his office.
Right.
And it was basically house arrest with an ankle bracelet.
Right, so he spent the nights in jail in Florida.
And we also know that he had meetings with the FBI in his schedule that were found. And we know that he met with Bill Barr, according to Bill Barr's schedule, at least 3 times when he was the deputy FBI director. Deputy CIA director. So he has, we know that he has at least met with the CIA and the FBI, and that he had given FBI tips. I, through my reporting, had heard about this as well, but these are meetings, so it's hard to say.
Right, what happened?
Exactly. The problem in this story is there is just so much conspiracy, so I try to play in the land of facts as best as possible, although I have spoken to so many of the survivors. I was really close with Virginia Giuffre. I mean, I spoke to her months before she died in February, and there's a new story in the Times of London right now about the final months of her life. And I didn't really feel comfortable saying this because we had created this friendship, but it seems that her family wants it out there. But, she wrote about her husband abusing her, and that she really lived this really difficult life. And she opened up to me about that too. And I didn't feel comfortable sharing that because of, for the fact that it is her personal story and it wasn't really something that she broadcasted herself. Her family wants it out there. So I feel okay with talking about it. And it's obviously public, her diary. But for all the people out there who are like, she was offed, it's like, no, she lived a lifetime of sexual abuse, starting at a very young age, by the way, a very, very young age, even before she met Epstein. And it's just that so few people really get so obsessed with the wealth porn of it all, the rich and powerful men, that they sort of forget the grooming part of it. The fact that they chose these very poor, disadvantaged girls on the wrong side of the intercoastal in Palm Beach, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of them had been sexually abused themselves. A lot of them, their parents knew that they were going to see Jeffrey Epstein, but that $200 for the massage actually helped the family, and it's like, and then after being abused by Epstein, they often moved on to lives where Courtney Wild went to prison. She had drug problems. They'd suffer with mental health. They end up in abusive relationships. And And a lot of them are suffering like with mental health issues. And it's not surprising that she would kill herself. The idea that she had to be offed, I mean,
No, it was clearly a tragic life.
Yeah, it's a tragic life. And it's like, I think that the victims are lost in all of this and how they suffer after what they've already lived through.
Where did you conclude that Jeffrey Epstein's money came from?
Okay, well, I definitely think it started with Les Wexner. You know, he's the founder of Victoria's Secrets, and they had this weird friendship that some thought was borderline sexual. They were so close. He introduced him to his wife, Abigail. I never heard that Les Wexner was necessarily a party guy like some of Epstein's other friends, but I mean, he sold him his townhouse at such a discounted rate in the Upper East Side. It's one of the biggest townhouses in New York City.
The famous townhouse where you see Prince Andrew coming out of it, being snapped by paparazzi.
Exactly.
Peeping around the door to see if there were any paparazzi, and they were hidden.
Exactly. And it just, the relationship was very strange. I think he opened up the world of a math teacher at Dalton, who, by the way, was, who got in trouble for trying to pick up students, okay? How do you go from being a math teacher to this wealthy financier, hanging out with people who work at Apollo and getting Bill Gates and all of the richest people in the world to spend time with you? I think Les Wexner was the conduit who at least got him into the door. And there's a lot of reporting on this, too, about how they spent a lot of time together. And he showed Epstein the high life. Now, some have suggested that they were lovers and that Les did not want that out there. And that is part of the reason why he would even do this, that he would even open Jeffrey up to that world. But Jeffrey became intoxicated by it. And I think that Jeffrey liked to trade on people's secrets. He also liked to brag a lot. And I think you probably heard that in the Michael Wolff tapes as well. Jeffrey liked to be like, Trump's my boy. Nothing's going to happen to me. Bill Barr is my boy. Nothing's going to happen to me. You know, he liked to brag about his connections. He kind of knew he was a fraud, and he needed those connections. And he needed Ghislaine Maxwell for the polish and for the entree into high society. And so that he wasn't just some weird kind of slimy guy.
But he still died with, I think, 600 million in assets. So I'm still very curious as to where he got the money from.
Well, people would invest in him. He would take their money and he would...
But didn't he have to give the money back at some point? I mean, usually investors expect a return.
I mean...
Anyway, it's
if you have some compromat on people, they might not be quick to ask for the money back.
Right, I guess. Anyway, it's a fascinating
He would
story,
say that my returns are better. He would make his pitch, but if you've been partying with someone over a weekend, are they really going to be hounding you? It's like,
I don't know. I mean, who knows? It's all fascinating,
right.
And
that's why it's hard to do this story. I mean, I have obviously spoken to the survivors. I've seen their lists of the men that they've been trafficked out to. And they are just really, really heavy hitters. And that's why I also think
why hasn't the list come out yet? Why hasn't Ghislaine spoken? Why did Ghislaine accept a 20-year sentence instead of just helping
I think she is
with their inquiries?
I think she's probably helping them right now.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do. And there is no list, by the way. That's just not a thing. Like, Jeffrey wasn't hoarding some like little piece of paper that had all of his clients on it.
But who are the heavy hitters that we're supposed to believe were doing this?
I mean, if I said it on the show, I would probably get
killed on the way out of here.
Not killed, but it would make my life very difficult. What I've heard.
But I don't.
And
But how much more difficult can Ghislaine Maxwell's life be? She's got 20 years in jail. Why wouldn't she just say these are the people?
I don't think she's going to spend all 20 years in jail, do you?
I've no idea. I've no idea.
I don't think so. I have heard...
Meaning what, that you think Trump will pardon her? Or
no, I think she gives them more information. They cut her sentence to a shorter sentence. They can't let her out right now. There would be public outrage. But nobody's paying attention. Story's gone away. A few years, Ghislaine's out or ends up in some nice prison. This is what I've been told by law enforcement source, that they are working on cases against the Johns, releasing this footage or this, it's a lot of it I've been told from from survivors who have been brought into the FBI to see if, like, is that your body under this John? And one of them told me that she said, no, that's not my breasts, or that's not my body, that's not me. They have pictures. They have.
So is it true that Jeffrey Epstein was taking compromising pictures of all the people that went to his house?
His house, when they first raided it for the 2006 case, they found a lot of cameras everywhere. Plus, he had pictures of the girls all over his house. There was definitely a sort of photography. There was definitely photography at the very least.
Naked pictures or like arty pictures?
So, well, the pictures that I was told from the survivors that their lawyers brought them in to see to identify themselves under these men, I have to assume they were taken surreptitiously.
Right.
And they, it's I can't even imagine thinking about this. But yes, I've been told from law enforcement that if they release this evidence, it could also reopen Ghislaine's case.
So what are all the videos that Pam Bondi has that people keep saying she's about to release?
Well, that's it.
Oh, these are the
Are
these the Epstein files that she was supposed to have given to all the influencers?
First of all, I don't think they could release these images. I mean, they involve minors. That's another thing. There's privacy concerns.
Why can't they just black out the minors?
I guess they could, but then also there's like some of the minors might still know that it's them from the pictures, or they're not minors anymore, obviously, they're adults. There's also just the fact that, like, some of this evidence, like I said, could reopen Ghislaine Maxwell's case, and they're also trying to build cases against some of these Johns. So if you put out the evidence, like, into the public domain, you're hurting your own case. And imagine the people that you're up against, they are going to have the best defense attorneys in the world, and prosecutors don't like to do a case unless they think they're going to win, right? So they've
had a lot of time to work on it.
I know.
He died in 2019. What are they doing? Is there a special task force?
I just don't think they think they can. I don't think they think that they can win against these people. I really don't think they think they can win.
Because the people are supposedly so powerful that...
Yeah, and I think that a lot of these men, too, were with women that were of age, by the way.
Right, so then there's no crime.
Yeah, exactly. And that's hard to... And victims have told me that, too. The girls were 18 or they were 19. Jeffrey really kept the young ones to himself. So that's another part of it. So you really there's a lot of... And you're not just going to put out a picture of a man over a woman, a public figure like that, until you've got it nailed down. I think it would be...
It doesn't quite feel like it would be that hard to nail down if you've got the girls. Because the girls all know each other.
Yeah.
Or a lot of them knew each other. Anyway, I wasn't expecting to go down this spiral.
No, there are a lot of questions. No, there are a lot of questions. And I literally spoke to senior law enforcement source last week about this, because I'm like, why is the vault basically all redacted? And there is no list. Like, that's the other big misconception. I know it's a political weapon that people use against each other, but there's no secret list. But there is more evidence than we've ever seen before. I've looked through most of the evidence. A lot of it is just Virginia's case.
Testimony.
Yeah, case. And her... but it's very complicated when you deal with these sex crime cases as well. I'm not trying to give the FBI a pass or the prosecutors a pass at all. I do think they kind of hope this would die. It's going to be a tough one for them. And I'm sure the guys that they're up against will figure out ways to make it die. You also have to factor in witness tampering and what they're doing to these girls to keep them silent and to make this really difficult. They have ways. I mean, they nearly ran Courtney Wild off the road when she was trying to do her Crime Victims' Rights Act case, and it's the only reason why Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again. It took her over a decade. It's scary.
Wow. Tara, for those who haven't watched or listened to your Jeffrey Epstein podcast, you actually went around the country with Virginia Giuffre talking to people who were involved with Epstein at the same time as she was, correct?
Yes. Virginia was definitely there at the height of the sex trafficking operation. And Virginia and we went all over the country. And I went with another survivor as well, Marika Chartune, and we just rang doorbells. The pilot who still hasn't released his flight logs, because there's one pilot who still hasn't released his flight logs. The houseman, Juan Alessi, we spoke to him, and he ended up being used as a witness in the case against Ghislaine Maxwell. We tried to talk to other friends of Jeffrey Epstein. We went to this celebrity chef who Jeffrey Epstein was friends with in New Mexico. We went to his Adam Perry Lang. Like, we went to his restaurant to try to talk to him. We went all over the place. We knocked on doors, and we really did shoe leather reporting. Because for a lot of the things that Virginia said, people will she said it for 10 years, really, and everyone
No one listened.
No one listened. And so it was really important, not just for the credibility of the show, but for Virginia, that she could find people that would say, I remember you, I know you, I remember that, you're a person. I mean, it was really heartbreaking for her, especially with the Prince Andrew, for him to be like, I never met this woman before. And I don't think people understand what that feels like for a victim, for a survivor. It's like they feel like they never existed.
Well, and there was the photo.
There's a photo, exactly. And so for her to find these people who were around, that were present, for example, Juan remembered distinctly, he remembered seeing Prince Andrew in the house and preparing a massage room for him. He remembered bringing some of the girls, driving them back and forth. And one of the girls that he used to bring, she ended up testifying against Glenn. He was a critical witness in the case. And we also found another woman who was grooming and procuring girls for Jeffrey Epstein. She was younger than Ghislaine, but there were a lot of Ghislaines. And I don't consider the minors to be Ghislaines, by the way, the ones who are part of the pyramid scheme. I'm talking about
kids at school.
I'm talking about kids. I mean, I'm talking about adults.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Women in their 20s and 30s who were part of the machinery that supplied the 3 women a day that Jeffrey Epstein apparently needed. Exactly.
And so we went and confronted one of these women, and it was really something. And it's a really, really hard story. I saw the emotional toll it took on Virginia up close.
What was the title of the podcast, just in case people want to watch it?
It's called Broken Jeffrey Epstein.
That's right.
And we start with an episode called The Enablers. And those were the people that we talked to that worked for him and made sure that the clocks were turning and that the things were happening. And it's hard. I mean, he really paid his staff well because they saw a lot of really gross stuff. And it was really tough. And then the friends, I mean, they were the friends that saw it. I mean, they were enablers too, in a way.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Well, this has given all the conspiracy theorists about Epstein much to think about. Do you think he was murdered, or do you think he committed suicide?
Okay, see, this is going to take away credibility from what I just said, but I believe that he was murdered, and so does Julie K. Brown, who I worked with on these podcasts. She was the executive producer. She's the Miami Herald journalist who helped reopen the case.
But just tell me, who do you think murdered him?
Okay, this is not based on my own reporting, by the way. This is based on a CBS 60 Minutes report from Sharon Alfonso, who I think is a great reporter, by the way. By the way, there are a lot of really great reporters that work in mainstream news, so I'm not trying in any way to discount them. And I get my news, a lot of them from them, and I know that they're great reporters too. So Sharon did a report about the prison, well, the jail, where this jail in the
Manhattan Tombs.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the Tombs,
where they put El Chapo and all these other people.
Right.
So it is suspicious. I mean, how can you not think it's suspicious? The guards are asleep. The video footage is gone. Jeffrey was not the type to kill himself. He thought he was powerful enough to get out of anything. He even said to Courtney Wild's lawyer, they're never going to arrest me again. Trump's my boy. He never really believed it. I mean, even in his note, prison is no fun. Does that sound like someone who wants to kill themselves? This guy is an egomaniac, narcissist, believes that he's almost God-like, right? I do think that there is a part of pedophilia or at least this uber wealth where the only thing you can't get is children, right? You can buy everything else, but not children. And so he's a sick and twisted person. And also in prisons, pedophiles do the worst. They are the lowest of the low when it comes to criminals, right? Below even mass murderers, they don't do well. People kill them. And Sharon did a report on this cop from Long Island who was in this prison.
As a prisoner or as a
he was jailed. Yeah. Right. I can't remember exactly for what, but I thought it was a really striking report because she brought up the idea and she interviewed his lawyer, by the way, and the cop, about the idea that he might have been paid to kill Jeffrey Epstein by a high net worth individual. And that, maybe we should go take a trip to Long Island and see if there's a new car outside of his wife's house, or if they upgraded something, or because that would be the way to do it, an inside job. Pay somebody.
It's a lot of effort to make it look as if someone's killed themselves with a...
Yeah, but a cop would know how to do it.
I guess.
I mean, think of how many crime scenes they go to. How many times they see suicides.
True.
So that one I thought was the most plausible story. I don't think, Hillary Clinton went in with the pickaxe and killed him, or even Mossad or CIA. I think it was likely another prisoner who was paid to do it.
It was the Long Island policeman, and he did it for the money.
Yeah, I think that sounds the most plausible. The idea that Epstein killed himself, it just doesn't ring true to me. But I want to be transparent about my reporting, and that is just something, and even Julie says it to this day, and she's done a lot of reporting on this too, and she's just like, she still thinks that he was killed too.
That's fascinating.
What do you think?
I don't know. I just don't know enough about it, and I always think that it's usually the most prosaic answer that is the right answer. Like, I can completely believe that two people fell asleep at night when they were supposed to be on guard. I think one of them was shopping on Amazon, weren't they?
Well, it was historically a jail that was very poorly guarded.
Right.
It was really badly rated. The New York Post would constantly write about it. I know this because I worked at the New York Post. And this was what they were obsessed with the jail and how it was so poor.
Yeah, but I really haven't done a deep dive into the Epstein thing, but I know it's a source of much interest and intrigue, and I'm very intrigued by why he was such a compelling figure to people like Bill Gates, who have access to many compelling figures. So it felt weird to me that he would want to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein, given what he knew about him. And clearly it mattered to Melinda Gates, his wife, who cited his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein as one of the triggers for their divorce.
I think he was a party. I think you got to go to Jeffrey Epstein's house and you knew there were going to be a bunch of hot chicks there. Like, I hate to say it that way, but you knew that there were going to be young, beautiful women there, and they were going to be, and it felt different and not like going out with probably Melinda and the normal crowd that Bill Gates would be invited to. I don't think Bill Gates was probably invited to a lot of those kinds of parties. And Jeffrey it was weird. He's a guy in his 50s and 60s, and he's hanging out with all these young women. And the other thing about...
You go to any club in New York, and it's always guys
but not
hanging out with young women.
Yeah, but the thing that Jeffrey had that those men don't have is that Jeffrey also had very... he had powerful women around him, too, who were validating him.
Right, Ghislaine. Well, that was the power of Ghislaine, right?
Ghislaine, and there were a few other women.
Tell me a little bit about your Maxwell. Oh, because I haven't watched that or haven't listened to that. What was your conclusion? Because I had a lot of friends that worked for
I can only
Maxwell.
imagine.
Yeah, one of the things he used to like to do was interview people for a job in the car on the way from London, where he would meet them or pick them up, to his house in Oxford, in Headington Hall. And what he would do is, after the interview was over, he would drop them in the middle of the motorway, and they would then have to find their way back, and he'd go, the interview is over, and then the driver would pull to the side and they would literally have to get out on the middle of the motorway. He
was a disgusting person. That was what I gathered from him.
Yeah, bully, horrible.
Peeing in front of people, just such disregard for everyone.
He used to pee off the roof of his building, I think, onto unsuspecting pedestrians below.
Right. To be fair, I did this podcast in 2020, so it's been about 5 years. And I, as much as I was interested in him and the oddity, he was a little perverted too, to be honest. He seemed like that to me. He was a strange character, and it is amazing what he came from. A shtetl in Eastern Europe, and then changes his name to Maxwell, and then becomes this press baron, tries to create this empire, really does. I mean, he wants to compete with the Murdochs, he wants to buy the Daily News. He did own the Daily News very briefly. It was really impressive, and it was sort of in the same way Jeffrey Epstein was able to sort of go from being a guy from Coney Island, a math teacher, into this...
Well, and at the heart, they were con men, right?
They were.
He spent £500 million. I think it was £500 million of the pension fund on his lavish lifestyle, choppering here, there, and everywhere. His boat, the Lady Ghislaine, having huge parties, unlimited expenses for lots of the people that worked for him. And he must have been completely panicked that he was running through the money. I always remember when one of his sons, Kevin, was married to a woman called Pandora, and some people came up the driveway and were banging on the door, and she leaned out of the window just after Robert Maxwell's death, after he'd, I assume, committed suicide by throwing himself off the boat. But you may have some more.
No, you're right. No, I don't actually make a conclusion about the conspiracy theory, but yes.
Well, I just remember her leaning out of the window and saying, "Go away or I'll call the police." And they said, "We are the police." And they'd basically come to arrest her husband, Kevin.
Yeah.
Who was found not guilty, actually.
Yeah. That it's really sad. We spoke to some of the people who lost their pensions, and it was really hard for them. I think he was a terror. He was a con man. You completely nailed it. And it's really weird that Ghislaine, who was his favorite child, although he bullied her too. He was not great to her.
Bullied all of them, I think.
Yeah, he did. And he was very hard on her about her weight and her appearance, but he also thought she was the most beautiful of the children, so he showed her off. He treated her like he was his wife, bringing her to events. And, there were some reports that he was the one who introduced her to Jeffrey. And
I think he did, right?
Has it been confirmed? I'm not sure that it's been confirmed that he did, but, she kind of fell, after Daddy died, she fell into Jeffrey, and she was in love with him. She was always in love with him. Very weird relationship, and he treated her terribly. I mean, think about that, having to be the groomer and bring young girls for this man who has an insatiable desire to be with children, and to every few hours. It was disgusting. And that was the life she chose, of doting on him. And he was a character that really was in so many ways a psychological profile of her own father. And
right. Well, and I think she was used to being around money, right? When her father died and left the family destitute, she was looking for someone else that could look after her. She
did end up getting a townhouse, a $20 million townhouse. So
I'm not quite sure she couldn't get a job like the rest of us, but
it's tough when you've
it's tricky.
Did you ever meet her? Did you know her?
I met her once, and the thing that I found interesting about her was she was predatory to the men in the room. I met her at a friend's birthday party. But the other thing that she did, which I was subsequently told was one of her habits, was that she wore a wig, and she would move the wig slightly when she was talking to you, which was extremely disconcerting. And so her hair would sort of move, and you'd be like, "Oh, what was that?" That's the only thing I remember about her.
That sounds about right.
And being compelling. She had a strong presence in the room. You couldn't not pay attention to her.
Right, and she would make outlandish comments, right, so that everyone would pay attention to her. And
yeah, one of the games that she used to play was apparently when people would go and stay with her for the weekend, she would blindfold the men, make the women take their tops off, and then make the men feel their breasts and identify them to the women.
Ugh, gross.
Yeah, weird
really
game.
Gross.
I'm very glad I didn't go to a party like that. I would have had to sit that one out.
There were so many women that spent time with them, like Eva Dubin. The Dubins are one of the wealthiest families. And that was the thing. I felt that the saddest part about the Epstein story was how society, this high society, would look the other way even after he was found guilty.
Well, just because you're rich doesn't mean you have good judgment, right? I mean, we assume that because people are rich, they must have excellent taste and excellent judgment, and they frequently have neither.
I know, but if there was a pedophile in my neighborhood where I grew up, no one would want them in the neighborhood. No one would have them over for dinner. He was arrested for trafficking a 13-year-old for prostitution, as if a 13-year-old could be trafficked for prostitution. There's no such thing as a 13-year-old prostitute. And when he returned to New York City, he sat down with some of the most powerful people in the world, and nothing had happened. So that is the problem. If he came to where I grew up...
Where did you grow up, Tara?
I grew up in New Jersey, in a very middle-class town. A lot of people were nurses, teachers, secretaries, a lot of firefighters, cops, tradespeople. And so, we wouldn't let that happen. that he just wouldn't be allowed around. And that would be seen as someone who's a threat to our people.
I think this is your new Substack. I think you need to do a Jeffrey Epstein Substack. I mean, this is just as interesting as Trump and the enormity of what's going on in the White House.
Yeah, I think so too. It's really depressing, honestly, because it's that part of it that gets me down. I just think, like, I knew that these girls were being preyed on because they were poor. Like, the girls that he never went after the children of the wealthy.
The wealthy of his clients.
No, he never did that. No. He picked the girls from the wrong side of the tracks, who literally, some of them, according to court documents, couldn't even afford the shoes they were wearing. And the sickest part about it is that sometimes their parents dropped them off. And they knew what was happening, but they needed the money that bad. And it was just really dark. And there was a pyramid scheme going on in the school. Nobody cared. It was like, it's really...
The pyramid scheme being that the girls would introduce other girls to Jeffrey Epstein.
It was so known in the school that there was this 50-something-year-old man in Palm Beach that was doing this.
$200 for a massage.
Yeah, some girls who had braces. He liked braces, and he liked them to look as young as possible. It's just dark. So I know that's probably not what you wanted to end on, but I think that to me is like that's what I don't want people to forget about this story. And the Johns,
So do you think that Pam Bondi will actually come after people? I mean, she keeps threatening to release the Epstein videos. I'm not quite sure what the videos are, but is there more information that Pam Bondi has?
According to my sources, they have this information and they are using it to build a case. Will they build a case? And I think, like I said earlier, that they have to build the strongest case possible, because these Johns are the most powerful people in the world who will hire the best lawyers in the world, the best defense attorneys, and you will have, some of the best prosecutors, but still up against the best defense attorneys. And then there's the witness tampering, there's the privacy concerns. And again, they don't want to open up Ghislaine's case again, because she's going to look at that as an opportunity. Their lawyers are waiting for them to do this so they can pounce and say, this is prejudicial information. We could use this in our case. We want to reopen her case up. So I'm not saying that the FBI or the CIA isn't slow rolling this. This is tricky. And by the way, the names on those lists, the list that I've seen from survivors, not the list,
right,
they're from both sides of the aisle.
It's amazing to me how many people have gone down over the Jeffrey Epstein case. You think Bill Gates got sideswiped by it, the guy at MIT lost his job over it. Prince Andrew has lost his princeship over it.
Deservedly. Yeah.
It's incredible.
The Apollo.
Leon Black lost his CEO-ship of
Barclays,
the company he founded.
Right. And then Barclays,
Jess Staley at Barclays.
Les Wexner was removed from the board.
Right. It's an astonishing list of people, actually.
Right, but none of them have been prosecuted, which is concerning, like you said. That is the problem, is that no one's been prosecuted. Stand up a case. I mean, even if it's a shitty case, just stand it up. Let the people know that you're trying.
And to your point, they may not have been underage. The girls may not have been underage. They may have looked young, but they may not have been underage.
And we also don't know about how many of these women have settled privately with some of these men, and they've decided because of that they don't want to cooperate. There's a lot of different factors. I hope they do something. There is a demand in the society right now, and I think there's a real feeling that we need some justice. It took a long time for them to bring the case against Ghislaine, and it was pretty easy.
Well, I think if they do bring a case, you're going to be the first person to hear about it. And we're all going to have to pay attention to Tara Palmeri Media, because you know a lot about this stuff. Anyway, this was not the direction that I expected the conversation to go in, but I'm really intrigued that you think he was murdered, and by a Long Island policeman. So it's
I'm basing that on the 60 Minutes report, and I do think that is the most compelling thing that I have heard.
Right, the most plausible.
And just based on everything I've learned and heard about Jeffrey Epstein from the many people who have spent a lot of time with him, I do not believe he's the type of man to kill himself.
Pam Bondi, if you're listening, it's down to you. Tara, enchanting to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So much for coming. Yeah, I think all the conspiracy theorists online about the Epstein case are going to somehow hear on the YouTube radar about this conversation and come flocking. Anyway, very interesting, very provocative, and we wish you incredible luck as you go. I know you're going away on holiday, and of course it won't be a holiday because when you work for yourself, you end up working every day anyway. But I hope you get 5 minutes to have a break. You are a machine of content, and we're very excited to see what you do next.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor, and I'm a fan of your show, and I'm always amazed by how much news you break. You really do move the news. The White House Correspondent's dinner would be would have been very different.
I know. It's my fault it's our fault that Amber Ruffin ended up getting fired, and the White House Correspondent's dinner turned out to be rather dreary and earnest.
Did you end up going to it?
I did go, and I missed her badly. I think everybody missed her, actually. I think the evening needed a comedian. If I were them, I would not have fired her. I would have kept her. I thought it was a strange moment that you would fire the comedian.
I didn't think it was great either, although her comments were pretty off the wall. But I also...
She's a comedian. Men make comments like that all the time. Male comedians make comments like that all the time. Mm-hmm. And I felt they shouldn't have fired her.
There is a double standard. Isn't it weird? Thanks for listening to the Tara Palmeri Show. I want to thank my producer, Eric Abinate, my booker, Jane Fusco, and my team of researchers, Abby Baker and Luke Radel, and my social media manager, Sarah Carney. If you like this show, please follow it, subscribe, leave a written review. I'd really appreciate that, and share it with your friends. You can get more of my independent reporting by going to tarapalmeri.com and signing up for my newsletter, The Red Letter. It'll come straight to your inbox, and if you become a paid subscriber, it's a way to support my independent journalism. I'll be back again soon.